I'm officially obsessed, and you will be too. If you haven't tried Lem by Hello Nancy yet, what are you doing? Over 1 million women are using it, and the reviews are wild. One girl literally said, "Join the incredibly satisfied brigade." I didn't believe it until I tried it myself. The hype is 100% real. Don't let the cute design fool you. Go to hellonancy.com and see what the hype is about.
Hi, I'm Maria Thea Harris, or VeloSo's on social media. Welcome back to this episode for Sober 50 on So Organised Style Podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe to So Organised Style Podcast on your podcast app and on YouTube.
One of my realizations, and I actually write about this in the Substack, is that pants essentially are like a tensegrity structure. A tensegrity structure is kind of like the squish toy. So let's say you alter one part and it changes other parts. Then you alter the other parts, it changes other parts.
Oh, okay. That's Ruth Collins. She's Ithaca Maven on Instagram and now the author of Body Neutral Fitting Pants Edition. Ruth has contributed to many people sewing pants successfully over the years. On another topic, if you live in Australia and decide to purchase your own Mimiquin, I'll be your body scanner. Go to mimiquins.com to book your scanning session. Now, let's grab a cuppa to hear Ruth tell her story.
It's so good to see you.
Great to see you too. It was 2022, last time we spoke.
Seems like yesterday.
It does, doesn't it?
It really does. Yeah, it's been a while. Wow. We should speak more often.
I think so. I'm really pleased that you put out the book because that's what we're here to talk about.
Yeah.
And thank you for sending me a copy as well. I really love it. It's called Body Neutral Fitting Pants and it's by you. And you've got a really good illustrator, Martine.
Yeah, so Martine Barnaby is a professor of fine arts at SUNY Cortland, which is a university. It's about half an hour away from here. And we met. We were introduced by a mutual friend, and we just got on really well. And her husband also has been really helpful. He's a special ed teacher, and he was also instrumental, like going through the text and making sure it was really accessible. It's just been a wonderful collaboration, and I'm hoping to continue it.
I hope so too, because the whole accessibility side of things, the images that you've gone and put in there, it's not just male or female, and people will see that in the drawings that Martina's done.
The whole approach is designed to be inclusive of body styles and different designs, and we really wanted the graphics of the book to reflect the philosophy of the approach.
Yep. So the approach that we're talking about, so that people who are new to meeting you, Ruth, is the top-down, center-out pants fitting method.
It's really a design-driven method. So it's really a method of really making your own pants. So let's say DIY pants or trousers, and using the design as a basis for assessing how it fits on your body. The reason why I called it body neutral fitting, what I'm really interested in is coming at things from a design perspective, making it clear that it has to be body neutral. And that's something that is really hard for traditional people to get their heads around. The idea that it's not about taking a lot of measurements of your body at all, if you have the design that's been made ahead of time. What is body neutral fitting? Why does it make a difference? How to take control of your fitting process. Because I think the thing is, in this method, I'm not telling people to use themselves as a mannequin. It's an active process where you move the toile around in order to assess how the various components fit on you. If you need it more one way or more another way, the vertical or the horizontal, because at the end of the day, the fabric just has two dimensions. It only has X and Y. And so you have to decide how much X and how much Y is appropriate to fit the design onto your particular landscape.
This whole discussion now is all about body neutral fitting, and the focus of the book is all about pants. So I think what I really appreciated in the book was the way you set it up so that people can look at problem solving, but also figure out what suits them the best and then going from there. So, do you want to talk us through how you've developed the book so that myself, as a traditional sewist, can get the benefit out of it?
When you're deciding what kind of pattern to make, you come to it, you want to make pants, and you want those pants to fit you. So coming to it as a traditional sewist, you really need an approach that you can achieve by yourself, solo. And even in the Substack where we do make pants with me, it's kind of like a make along, but I'm not telling anybody how to fit their pants. So if you were to go to an atelier, let's say, where you would have custom made pants, that's more like a service. Or if you go to a class where they fit pants to your body, that's a service. They're telling you, you will stand there and almost passively, and somebody comes along and fits you, pinches, pulls here, pins this out or that. And then you go away, you adjust your pattern. You have pants that fit you. So that's you're getting a service, and people will like that because maybe then they have something like a block or a sloper that they can adapt to other styles. So this is different, but I'm not providing a service. I'm actually asking people to be their own fitter so that they can go out and fit any design. And that's really a very big difference. So we actually spend a lot of time in the Substack talking about the design of pants. Like if you were going to, in a two-part pant, like the short pant, for instance, where would you shorten the leg? Would you want to shorten it in the lower part? Would you want to shorten it in the upper part? What are the pros and cons of doing these different methods? And every fitting solution or every fitting challenge has different ways to approach it. And what are the pros and cons of different approaches, and what will work best with your landscape, your individual body, and the design. For example, if you're shorter and you're talking about a barrel leg pant, you may not want so much of a curvature on the outside of your leg, for example, or you may, depending on how you assess that design. So it's really a design focused approach.
And I think you've described it really well, that your body is a landscape and the fabric has to work on your landscape. And that's really a neutral way to put it, too.
So the way I think about it's like an architectural blueprint, which is 2D. So, for example, let's say if you were Falling Water, which is this famous Frank Lloyd Wright architecture at home, and it's beautifully situated on top of this waterfall. So that waterfall and the home that's situated in it is so unique, and it blends into the landscape. Now you could purchase the blueprint or the plans to build that home, but you're not going to have the same waterfall. You're not going to have the same hills or the same trees. You're going to have a slightly different version of a landscape, but you still want that blueprint. You want to adapt that blueprint onto your individual landscape. So if you like, many of us are coming to making clothes from the problem of fitting or custom fitting. So we think that it doesn't, the other part of it doesn't matter as much. So we think it's just a question of taking our measurements and then changing the pattern to fit those measurements. But what I'm actually saying, it's almost counterintuitive. Like take a step back, decenter yourself, even though it's custom fitting, decenter yourself, and instead approach it as building a relationship between the blueprint, the pattern, the design, your body, and also ultimately the third wheel in the relationship is the fabric. And everyone can tell you that they've got things that fit perfectly in the mock-up, and then they change the second time around, they've changed the fabric type and the fit changes a lot as well. So it really gets you face to face or with the fabric, and how that is the third element that makes things fit or is related to the design of the garment.
So the setup for body neutral fitting is still, as you mentioned, a few years ago, you set up your two mirrors, you do one side of the garment, and in this case, it's pants, and you have the elastic and or the waistband, and you go from there to do your adjustments. Is that correct?
Yeah, so having two mirrors that you can look at yourself hands-free is absolutely crucial to this method. and it has to be hands-free. And the reason it has to be hands-free is because you are moving the toile around to assess the fit. You are not passive. The toile is not passive. And one of the great things about fitting the lower half of your body is that you can actually you can actually move things around and assess, see how that changes the fit. So two mirrors is absolutely crucial, and to be able to look at so you're looking at your front and your back simultaneously,
Yes.
without twisting your body.
Mm.
The second part is it's absolutely crucial to fit your waistband first, which it seems so strange and counterintuitive because the waistband often it could be just like a rectangle of fabric. But really, that's the part of the garment that has to closely correspond to your body. What I kind of realized is that traditional people say, well, I swapped out a curved, I prefer a curved waistband, and I swapped this out for a straight waistband or something like that. But what I'm trying to suggest to people is that your torso has a multitude of possible waistbands. So there's going to be a straight waistband that works for your body, and there's going to be a curved waistband that works for your body. And if you have a lower rise pant, you might like one type of waistband. If you have a high rise pant, you might want a different. And so these different types of waistbands, or it doesn't even need to be a waistband, it could be a facing, but the structure around the top edge of your pant
Mhm.
actually really has to be very closely corresponding to your body, and both your body and the design. So you actually fit that first, and that also is your fitting tool, as well as defining the top line of your pant, of your garment.
Yep.
Because when the fabric is flat and you only have X and Y, let's say the vertical and the horizontal, you need to know how much vertical you're working with. And you can't establish how much vertical you're working with until you know where your top where the top of the garment is. So it's really crucial actually to have your waistband first in this method.
When people are testing toiling, getting the fit right on one side,
Yeah.
would you suggest that they purchase enough fabric to do the garment at least twice so that they're always toiling or testing on the same fabric?
That's a really good question, because I think it gets to the idea of how far can the toile take you.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea here is we're really pushing the toile to take us to the point, just one toile, where we can do all our adjustments on that one toile, and then we could go to the fashion fabric with confidence. And actually, you have to say this is sometimes where the traditional patterns have an advantage, because they have this 5/8 seam allowance, and 5/8 seam allowance is about as big as you can get, for example, for a more curved seam like the crotch seam, without distorting the look of it while you're fitting.
Mm-hmm.
And it also gives you a little bit of leeway to change things up after you cut it out in the fashion fabric. But particularly for a lot of aspects of pant construction, you don't want to be cutting it out with very large seam allowances, particularly in the fashion fabric. And also you want to save on the fashion fabric. So you do want to go for a toile fabric that is close, if you can, to your recommended the final fabric you're going to be using. But if you're starting for the first time, I always recommend just a plain weave fabric. And in
Mm.
fact, I just use a lot of sheets, because it's very easy, certainly where I am, to get hold of old sheets. What I really do like is having a fabric that you can write on with a soft pencil,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're changing it up a lot. And so if you have like an old sheet, that it's really you've got like this blank canvas that you can write on.
Yep. And then you can keep that blank canvas if you want to recheck later on if you think the shape of your body has changed from when you first did it, maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's a great point. To see how things change, but also when you cut it out in the fashion fabric, and let's say, you cut it out in the fashion when you make your pants and it's not quite right. Part of the goal is to educate yourself to know what to look for. So then you could go back to the toile and say, did I see that issue in the toile? And sometimes like small things you think, oh, it's fine, but maybe it isn't fine when it comes to the fashion fabric,
Yep.
or maybe vice versa as well. So having that is a really great reference point, really, to educate yourself, because it's all about assessing yourself. What do you like? What are you looking for? And how to relate the toile to the final garment. And sometimes people feel that fitting on one side of the body they want a like a reassurance, so you can fit on. So then you could use the toile, go and change up the pattern,
Yep.
cut out a second leg in the altered pattern, join it to the first leg, and then see where you are from there. So one of the advantages of this, there's multiple steps that you can check, see, make sure you feel confident that you're on the right track, and if not, you can then circle back. And actually, it's not like it's not formulaic fit. It's not like a question of fitting the crotch curve, check, and then that's all done, and then move on.
Yeah.
One of my realizations, and I actually write about this in the Substack, is that pants essentially are like a tensegrity structure. A tensegrity structure is kind of like the squish toy. So let's say you alter one part and it changes other parts, then you alter the other parts, it changes other
Oh,
parts.
okay.
Everything has to be kind of coordinated together. And so you do start off with the crotch seam. That's really one of this right in the center of the body. It's the most important seam. But then sometimes when you come onto other areas of the pattern, you might come back and reevaluate that crotch seam because it has to play nicely with the other areas. So you're always doing things in coordination. Like a good example of this is, let's say, the relative lengths of the front of the back. Let's say you make your leg longer, you can't make the front part longer, not the back part longer. So they go together. So there are many parts of the pant that kind of go together, and or what they influence each other. And so this method is really helps you. It's not set in stone. You might want to circle back, and then if you've taken too much horizontal out of your crotch, you might want to come back and put a little bit more in, because you've figured it doesn't really work so well when you come to fit the side seam.
Now that we've got the book version, it's not just a matter of trying to find other people who have used the method a few years ago. And you've also provided the reader of the book with ways of problem solving as well. Because as you say, we're at home sewing on our own and teaching ourselves. And it's really handy that you've got the listing of problem solving. That's really helpful.
When I was looking at people who've used the method
Yep.
and used this general approach,
Yep.
I could see that there are certain issues that were coming up repeatedly. And for example, one of them is, I think people were wondering, like, how do you fit the crotch seam? I need to alter the crotch seam. And so I really emphasize that about these are all the different ways. I mean, the crotch seam is a very important seam. You got to get it to fit.
Yes.
These are the ways that that you can approach this seam to get it to fit. So I think particularly what I realized a lot of people weren't realizing when they needed to reduce the horizontal in the crotch seams. It's sort of counterintuitive that normally when you take in a seam, it's to make the garment smaller. And when you let a seam out, you make the garment bigger. But when it comes to the crotch seam, it's the other way around. So that has to play nicely. The crotch seam has to play nicely with the side seam. And so sometimes it seems counterintuitive to make that crotch seam smaller. So people really weren't, a lot of people that if they would ask me, hey, Ruth, can you troubleshoot me?
Mm.
I would say, actually, you need to reduce the horizontal in your crotch seam. And it's not obvious because you can actually get it to fit because it is a line. So you could get that line to fit closely to your body. But what you really actually needed was to make it smaller. And so so I put like the most typical problems that people have, like a very, very typical problem when first time people do this method, they're worried about making the waistband too tight, so it ends up being too loose.
Mm.
And I always say that it's a little bit like currencies, like they talk about the basket of currencies gets pegged to the dollar or whatever. And when this currency changes, all the other currencies changes. So the waistband is really that. If your waistband is too loose, everything else kind of relates to that.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
so it's going to end up all a little bit too loose. It's kind of like the kind of thing like everything is nicely balanced on your body, but you just wish you could shrink it like 98% or something just to get it to be perfect. And so, I talk about like different ways you can do that, maybe in your fashion fabric, or, how you could go back to your toile and look at that toile. Because the main thing is really to educate yourself so that you can assess what's going on, you can troubleshoot yourself. And if it doesn't go right, you know exactly why. It's not like, oh, I have this weird drag line that appeared, I have no idea why. That you will actually know where that drag line comes from and why it's there.
Really, the book allows those of us who are sewing on our own at 10 o'clock at night can have a look and figure out through the book where we need to take it in, take it out, have another go, all that sort of thing, just through what you've got in the book as it is.
Yeah, I think when you're by yourself late at night, you don't want to spend a lot of time doing this. I do it myself in like little bursts. And sometimes I just do like a 10 minutes late at night. Or then I'll have another check later in the morning. Sometimes I'll just get a little
Yeah.
Sharpie and draw. I think my new waistline is going to be. There's no book that can go into sufficient detail for every single body type and every single kind of style of pen. And so what the important thing is to think about in terms of principles. Like for example, you have your crotch point, which is simply just a point in space. And then you have the bottom of your hem, so the bottom of the inseam at the hem. So the inseam is just a line between those 2 points in space. And so let's say you want to make your leg narrower, you're on the paper pattern, it's going to be more slanted than if you're not going to have it narrower.
Mm.
And so thinking in terms of these seams are just traveling along the landscape, they're like roads from point A to point B and back again, and they can talk to each other, and they're not just lines, they come along with fabric, planes of fabric.
Mm.
And between when you have a concept like that, you're not thinking, oh, is my thigh thick or whatever? What is the dimension of the thigh? You're just thinking of like, how much fabric do I need to remove
Yeah.
going from that crotch point down to the hem? And so these are just all artificial point positions, and there's a lot of flexibility in moving these positions around so that the overall garment fits and hangs nicely on your unique landscape.
There's a lot to get out of the book. And I'm really pleased that you put it all together in that way. You also had a lot of help in getting the book together too, because you've started it 3 years ago.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
We've now got it to the point where people can purchase it too.
One of the interesting things about writing a book is I think we're at a time where more people are interested in slow fashion. Slow fashion is so critical for the future of the planet. Everybody, as they say, in the podcast, everyone gets up every day and has to eat and get dressed. And the more people that have clothing literacy, the better it is from the planet. So what I am aiming this is not just for traditional sewing people, but for anybody that has any interest in knowing how clothes are designed and how clothes get put together and how clothes fit on the body, to give people more control over that so they can make more informed choices. And so all along, I've been conscious of sort of reaching the audience of people that are willing to think about these things, that are interested in taking on these challenges. So, and the other part of it is just getting a lot of feedback from people using the method, where are the bottlenecks, and how to address that, how to explain to people just the principles, because I'm asking you really to change your point of view about fitting, and it absolutely is possible to fit any style, any design that is already, when you have a commercial pattern that's already made for you, without doing all these measurements or doing a lot of these things that traditional fitting involved, because that was part of making a pattern, not just using a pattern. And so it's really been great. So Martine Barnaby, Professor Barnaby, is not somebody who is she did not even have a sewing machine when I met her. And so sort of talking to the artistic community, it was been, really interesting journey. And also talking to students. So we've been talking to some students at SUNY Cortland, we've been talking to students here at Cornell, and getting them interested in sort of knowing like what makes for a comfortable pant, what makes for an uncomfortable pant, how can you have better clothes. So that's been wonderful. And then I also want to showcase Miriam and Anne Marie, and there's just like tremendous all along, really helping me to keep things simple. So I often will go into crazy detail about everything because I'm a very detail oriented person. And there's a fine line between putting too much detail into something that it becomes off-putting, and putting sufficient detail so people are empowered to go out and do it themselves. And so talking to them is, it's been great, and they've been giving me lots of helpful feedback, and that's been wonderful. And it's just in general, like the sewing community has been so great, with people trying things out, and they're making it work. And it's been really wonderful to get the feedback from everybody who's really using it. And particularly for traditional sewists who really feel empowered to go out and make lots of designs. And that's one of the sections in the book is creative inspiration, where I've taken people making all different patterns and put that into the book. Because one of the things I think I did notice is that many people who are teaching fitting would also be selling patterns. And I thought, if I want to come along and help people or change the approach to fitting, I cannot also, it'd be a conflict of interest for me to also sell a pattern. I have to be sort of pattern agnostic or pattern independent. And so that's like been really important. So we get to know like different styles and different pattern makers, and that's been wonderful. Like, particularly I'd like to point out Daughter Judy Patterns. Is a great designer, size inclusive designer, who's really committed to making modern contemporary clothes, like really high end ready to wear, and giving us the blueprints to make these clothes. And that's just been so wonderful, getting feedback from people like that who are supportive and really want to build the slow fashion community.
I was looking at the book and saw the learning and unlearning section. Why did that come about?
What I did notice when I'm troubleshooting people, let's say that they're trying out this method, one of the big hangups is they would come at it with these traditional ideas in mind. A classic one is the position of the crotch point. There's a widespread idea that the crotch point should be aligned with a part of your anatomy. And I was really trying to point out that doesn't need to be aligned with your anatomy. It's just a position in space, and you can move that around. And so I wanted to try to sort of help people get past some of these traditional ideas about what things should be, or what they think they need. They don't actually need to fit a commercial pattern.
Okay.
You do need a waistband.
You do need a waistband. Even when it doesn't have a waistband and there's only a facing, you still need that facing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because to define that top line.
Ruth, where can listeners and viewers find the book at the moment?
So the book, I would encourage listeners to subscribe to my Substack, Ithaca Maven.
Ruth, it's really great that, we've gone and put all this effort into the book, because it's not just the method that, you talked about in 2022, because we're now looking at what it really is, which is body neutral fitting. And the method, while it's 5 steps, you've put a lot of resources into the book that help people understand the framework, understand what it is that they're learning, and figure out how to move from basing it all around your waistband. And then you've got all the really helpful stuff about some easy problem solving as well. So I think it's a wealth of knowledge just in the book that you've published.
And it goes deep into the why of the method.
Ruth, thanks for coming onto the podcast. And I'm really pleased that we've had this chat, and congratulations on getting the book out.
Thanks. I'm excited to get it into people's hands and get everyone making pants.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye.
This episode of So Organised Style Podcast for Sober 50 was both video and audio produced by me, Maria Thea Harris, in my sewing room, with permission of Ruth Collins, sound by Knife on YouTube. Many thanks for the ongoing monthly support of the podcast Patreon contributors. Their paid Patreon membership enables me to create these video and audio podcasts for you for free. You can subscribe to So Organised Style Podcast, but with an S, not a Z, on all good podcast apps and on YouTube. And yes, if you live in Australia and decide to purchase your own Mimi Queen, I'll be your body scanner for Mimi Queens UK. Make sure you go back and listen to our free So Over 50 episodes on So Organised Style Podcast. And also, you can now tag your Instagram photos with @ShareSover50 to find all the Sober 50 sewers you've missed seeing since the tag search on Instagram went bust. I look forward to joining you in your sewing room next time. Stay safe, everyone.
Lost support through telehealth, but it feels overwhelming and rushed? Check out OrderlyMeds.com now. OrderlyMeds.com was built to be different. Here, you connect with real doctors who take the time to understand your goals, review your eligibility, and guide you through a plan that's right for you. Orderly Meds provides access to proven GLP-1 medications like semaglutide and tirzepatide, including both name brand options and personalized compound versions when appropriate. So you have choices backed by clinical oversight, not guesswork. It's a simpler, more supportive telehealth experience designed around people who want clarity, care, and confidence in their weight loss journey. And your medication is delivered directly to your home in discreet packaging, so your experience stays private from start to finish. Do your research, ask the right questions, then visit orderlymeds.com/podcast for an exclusive offer. Again, that's orderlymeds.com/podcast. Individual results may vary, not medical advice. Eligibility required. See site for details.